Be still and know that you ain't. Sometimes we need those reminders that, we are such good managers and such control freaks that it's easy to think that we are in control of all of life until we realize that breath that you just took about a minute ago, you didn't think about that breath, it just came your way. It's all gift. Sometimes we need to be reminded that it's not about us. We've been focusing upon that for the past few weeks, and again, we're getting hammered by it. We've got to stay with this lectionary because maybe we are a little bit calloused and a little hard-hearted, and we need to be reminded that maybe we're not as good as we think we are. And Job, unfortunately, caught the front end of that. He was as good a person as there ever could be, but he got a lashing, we just read, didn't we? He got brought behind the woodshed, and God had to remind him that he was not God. And I think that's what sanctuary does for us, because we put our names on the checkbook, we put our names on mortgages and car licenses, and we've got our name on a lot of things, but really it's Jesus Christ who owns it all. Colossians 1 says, all things were created by Him, for Him, and through Him. Today is a good reminder of that. So let's take a look at this gospel lesson, and it's a good lesson for each of us, I think. James and John were sons of Zebedee. They were known as the boys of thunder. They had terrible tempers, and yet they were still disciples. Hooray! For those who have terrible tempers, and you're struggling with your temper, you too can be a disciple of Jesus Christ. You remember the story, Jesus goes to a town and they don't believe in this town, and James and John pull him aside and says, why don't you just incinerate this town like you did Sodom and Gomorrah? Why don't you just toast them? They had terrible tempers and they used that day. So when you read, it says in our scripture, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, think about the boys of thunder. That's kind of their temperament. The verb says that they came forward to Jesus. I think that's a good verb. They came forward. They were being forward with Jesus. To come forward means you have to come from behind, right? You come forward. You make your place known. You are up front. They approached Jesus. They felt entitled. They were in the inner sanctum. Every time Jesus would do something special, He would invite three people. Peter, James, and John. Every time. The Mount of Transfiguration, when He was transformed, He took James and John with Him. Throughout His ministry, they were selected. These two brothers were always considered the closest to the big man. Every time Jesus did that, He invited them. Getting cozy with Christ can sometimes make us lose our reverence. We can get too comfortable. Loose lips sink ships. I picture that the brothers swaggered up to Jesus and opened their mouths with this brazen question. Change that. It wasn't a question. It was a command. Teacher, not Lord, not Messiah. Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. Oh my gosh. Who would say such a thing to God? Well, come to think of it, I do it all the time. And maybe you do as well. Maybe you say something like this, Lord, bless me, bless us. Do what we ask of you. We go to the vending machine of God and we put in our offering, and then we pull the lever and we expect to get what we want. Bargaining, bartering, manipulating, glory. But whose glory? So Jesus is the one who asked the question after the command, what is it you want me to do for you? He handled it better than I would have. I would have taken him behind the woodshed. Did he smirk? Did he snicker? Did he raise his eyebrows as he looked from his reading glasses and posed this question? Was he firm? Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory. In your glory. Jimmy and Johnny wanted to be close to Christ. The problem was they wanted to be, what? The closest. Arm's length, that close to glory. In His glory. With the angels. Obviously, they saw Jesus as the holy man, and maybe they figured that since they were close to the holy man in this life, they would be close to the holy man in the next life. They deserved it. They were Jesus' best friends. To be the parentheses around Jesus. To be the bookends, the brackets, the bodyguards, Guido and Lefty, protecting Jesus. Besides, they were the ones selected. Pedigree, position, power, personality. Jesus answers them with these words. You don't know what you're asking, boys. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink? Or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And lo and behold, the brothers puff out their chests and they say of all things, yes, we are able. Oh my gosh. Again, Jesus responds by inviting them, yes, to drink of the cup that He's able to drink, and yes, to be part of the baptismal waters, but the baptism and the cup represent death. And they didn't understand that. He says to sit where you want to sit at the table is for those for whom it has been prepared. He let them down, didn't He? But He let them down gently. They wanted glory, didn't they? They felt they deserved it. In His glory or their glory. Jesus pulls together the disciples because they're all hot, right? They're mad. Problem is, they probably was just the two that got caught. They're probably thinking the same thing. Whoever wishes among you to be great must be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to what? To serve. And to give His life a ransom for many. This was a lesson on humility rather than honor. I can imagine that there was a great deal of competition about who would get to saddle up beside Jesus in every town he went to. Imagine him walking down the roads. Wouldn't you want to be right up there next to him? And you imagine the battle in the back. They're pulling each other back so that they can get up first. We do that in our own life. We want to be holy too. Sometimes, though, we want to be recognized for our holiness. And God says, if you want to be recognized for your holiness, be recognized for your humility. Their request was ridiculous. But if we're honest, we might find ourselves feeling that we too are entitled. Besides, we are members of the church. We go to Sunday school. We worship regularly. We tithe in the offering plate. We deserve Jesus' royal ear, as we remember in King Louis in the Jungle Book. There's a fine line, though, between discipleship and becoming friendly with God. Boundaries are set, disciples. The closer we come to Jesus, the lower our posture becomes. To be a disciple of Christ is to do the little things, not just the big things. To become a servant, not just to some people, but a servant to all people. To model Christ is to bow, to humble self, and to think of others. But our text didn't open with that. It opened with the opposite. We want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. Is that the proper way to pray? Gimme, gimme, gimme? So let's take an inventory of our prayer life. What's our motivation for praying? To beg, to bargain, to barter? To say, if you help me with this, and I get blessing, then I give you